Whether you're looking for manufactured or natural stone to accent or update your exterior or interior project of any size, Centurion Stone of Iowa offers a variety of styles, patterns, and colors for every need. Centurion Stone, our own manufactured stone product, has the look and feel of natural stone and is available in over 200 color and pattern combinations. We also provide natural stone for interior and exterior projects. Our Des Moines and Omaha locations are open daily. Browse our wide variety of product samples with our helpful staff. They'll answer any questions that you have. Check us out on the web at centurionstoneofiowa.com.
All right, good afternoon, and welcome to the press box up here at Jack Trice Stadium. Iowa State just beat Northern Iowa 30-9. We thank our sponsors, Karl Auto Group and Centurion Stone of Iowa, for sponsoring postgame here. And they'll do that all season long. I'll just be firing this thing off right after Iowa State games, and we'll break everything down. Get to everything. Very workmanlike second half for Iowa State. Felt like they were pretty aggressive in the first couple of possessions, but then it got really vanilla. A lot of second-string guys on defense. Kind of a bummer, I guess, that Northern Iowa goes down there and puts a touchdown on the Cyclones, because it was really a dominant defensive performance by Iowa State today. When Iowa State's guys were out there, Northern Iowa couldn't do anything. But if you look at the box score, it doesn't really, if you don't watch the game and you just pull this thing up, well, hell, Northern Iowa outgained Iowa State today. And we'll talk about the offense. That's coming up here. But you really, so here's my overall view of this thing. We can get really picky with the offense, and that's fair because of the real concern for me is you average, it says 5 yards per rush, but boy, it certainly didn't feel like that today. I didn't think so, at least. You had a couple of J.J. Cole scrambles. Sama broke open a 26-yard run. The running game was not great. I think we all can agree on that, but didn't necessarily expect a finished product there. I thought that was something Iowa State would have to build to, and I love the fact that you look at Rocco Beck, 10 of 13, 113 yards, 2 touchdowns, completion rating 77%, and 0 turnovers. Man, that's how Iowa State's going to have to win games this year, guys. If you've listened to us all summer, it's what we've thought. This would be a ball control type thing where you've got to lean on your defense, and you wanted to see the special teams come around for Iowa State, and we certainly did see that today. You had a really good punt return. They were returning punts. They were this punter, Perkins, averaged like 53 yards per punt. That's the type of stuff where it's just, it's not fun. It's boring to talk about, but it's so damn important when you want to play ball control. And, you knew leading 23-0 at halftime that Campbell was going to make it the most excruciatingly boring second half of all time, and it certainly did. I agree with Simon, my guy Simon, watching us in North Carolina. Yeah, it would have been really nice to see them be able to run out the clock and just run the football, and they simply couldn't do that. Now, I'm not going to overreact because it was a dominant win today. If you just look at the box score, it wouldn't look like that. If you watched the game, you knew that Iowa State dominated this football game in every facet, except what we're talking about. Couldn't really run the football. But I like what you got out of quarterback. Really like these young tight ends. Look at this. Here's the stat for you guys. Iowa State targeted tight ends 5, 7, 8. 8 tight end targets today. I'll write that down. That's a really big stat. I mean, and it shows you, again, where this offense is heading to win football games this year. And it starts next week with the University of Iowa. They didn't look great against Utah State today, 24-14. But, yeah, Frederick points out a lot of walk-ons and reserve players played in that second half. That's what you want out of this first game. So I'm not going to overreact to the second half at all. I wish they would have worn them down. They didn't. The one other thing before we get into more, I'm not crazy about penalties today. 9 for 81. Got to clean that up. I'd rather it happen this week and clean that up for next week. But that's not a winning football stat for Iowa State when you start to play, real FBS type of competition. Really, one of my takeaways defensively was how aggressive John Haycock called the game in that first half. And I think that's probably a sign of things to come. Listen, when you have that secondary and, Jeremiah Cooper with the 2 interceptions today, he had the one that was the pick 6. But you've got, really 2 of the 4 probably best corners in the Big 12. And the secondary was just lights out. God, you can get aggressive. And he did that with the linebackers today. I really liked watching that. I'm anxious to see Rob and Connor and Jacqueline are all down at the press conference on the Tyler Onyedem injury. I believe it was cramps. I hope it was cramps. He was freaking lights out in the first half, had 7 tackles. Him and Dominic Orange, man, if you're not giddy about the defensive line after watching those 2 in that performance in the first half, then you don't have a freaking pulse. Those guys were dominant. The poor center for Northern Iowa was just getting his ass kicked by Orange. It was awesome. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Simon. I did not see that. Okay, it's hard up here. He said that Onyedem did come back into the game, so that's big time. I freaking love it. Yeah, great point here by Adam on the corner blitz with Miles Purchase. I really loved what he was doing defensively, and I'd love to talk to John. He's not going to give me information on it, but how much of the game plan this summer is just you just sitting there and you can trust those guys on the third level so we could freaking bring it. You look next week at a guy like Cade McNamara who is struggling with injuries right now. He didn't look right today for Iowa. I would expect a really exotic blitz package by Iowa State against the University of Iowa next week with Cade McNamara being in the spot that he is. Special teams were great for the most part. You had a bad PAT. Love seeing a 56-yard field goal by Chase Contreras. I loved what Campbell did there. I kind of thought they'd just run out the clock, but then they got into that spot and they lined up, tried to draw him off sides. I was just praying they would put him out there to, set the tone with the freaking kicker, right? That's huge. That's huge that he went out there and kicked a 56-yarder in his first attempt here at Jack Trice Stadium. Mentally for that kid going into next week, oh my gosh. Love it, seeing a kicker being able to do that for Iowa State. Let's go through some of my other notes. Really offensively, it was about what I thought we would see. Let's talk about the running backs. I already talked about Rocco Beck. Boy, J.J. Cole just looks a step behind, doesn't he? He's going to be a really good player for the Cyclones, but it'll look pretty clear to me that you name Rocco Beck your starting quarterback. He's been there longer. He's got more reps. Let Cole sit back and learn. You don't want to screw around going into Iowa week. Make Rocco your starting quarterback. I thought it was pretty clear from what we saw at running back that Cartavius Norton and Abu Sama are your 1-2 guys. Eli Sanders was not great. I'm not completely writing him off, but 5 carries for 13 yards. Sama really picked things up for Iowa State there in the second quarter when he popped that 26-yard run. It really changed the game, I thought, for Iowa State. It was lulling there. Then you poked that in at the end. Really changed everything. And then Cartavius Norton, 4.5 yards per carry. He just had more burst today than anything we saw from him last year, in which he fought injuries a lot. But doesn't it feel like, as you're watching this Iowa State offense start to develop a little bit, that those guys are so different, it feels like that could be a really good 1-2 punch between Sama and Norton. So I just really intrigued by that. They're certainly going to have more help with the offensive line. But I love the tight ends. I think there's a lot of positives here. I'm not really concerned about how this game looked closer than it actually was in the second half. That Northern Iowa touchdown drive was primarily against Iowa State's second string. I just really don't believe that Northern Iowa would have probably scored had Iowa State, kept its foot on the gas defensively. But yes, that's the one complaint. First, the penalties. Can't win like that against good teams. But two, the running game and the offensive line is clearly not where this team needs to be. But I'm not going to kill them after, pretty dominating win here today, because we've all known if Iowa State gets to a bowl game this year, they play ugly. And sometimes you do play to punt when you're trying to play ugly. And I thought today I would give the team a solid B+. Just the 9 penalties knocks you down, and the running game knocks you down. But I think it's a solid B+ all the way around. Got some questions answered, specifically with the kicking situation. Special teams looked awesome, I thought, across the board. Defense is lights out. They get an A. You look like you've got a quarterback in Beck that can take care of the football and do what you need to do to not give the game away. I don't know if you're going to go out there and win a lot of games on offense, but you can't give a game away. Turnovers, that type of thing. And they're clearly playing to their strength, which is the tight end room. And really in the second half, you don't have to show anything to the University of Iowa, and that's the whole point. Yeah. Chris says a good point. This is how the first game needs to go for the Cyclones every year. Comfortable, and you're able to see what new players can do. And I love that in the second half. I don't know about y'all, but I'm sitting there and geeking out, watching the backups, and it's that third string kid. We've heard a lot about him. Yeah, I love it. They're my favorite games to watch. My favorite basketball game of the year every year is those first ones where you see in the rotations. It's like you get to watch a real scrimmage, and that's what we experienced in the second half today. So really good win. It sets up next week to be really intriguing, I feel like, with Iowa, who, and I've just watched pieces of that game, but I can't imagine they feel too great about what happened today. They beat Utah State. I think Northern Iowa could compete with Utah State. I think it'd be a really good game. So it's 24-14 in Kinnick Stadium. It'll be hopping here. That's a really important game, right, when you talk about Iowa State and get into a bowl game, because when you looked at all those numbers early on, Iowa was one of those losses as far as the power ratings went. And, man, if you could flip that one, get Ohio and be 3-0, kind of like where this team fits into this new Big 12. Again, we just don't know enough yet. I'm not going to overreact. We all did that last year after Iowa. But, don't lose it with offense and special teams. You can go out and win it with your defense. Don't lose it with the others. And you saw Iowa State have a big step in special teams today. Still wide open as far as the offense goes. All right, I'm going to put this on the Cyclone Fanatic Podcast Network. You can go and listen to me on the Learfield postgame show on 100.3 The Bus and the Cyclone Radio Network. Be going at this for a while. Iowa State wins it 30-9. Williams and Bloom coming up on Sunday night, where we'll have a complete breakdown of this and everything in the Big 12. We'll start to look ahead to Iowa. I want to thank our sponsors, Karl Auto Group, Centurion Stone of Iowa, and all of you for watching on the Cyclone Fanatic social media pages, Twitter, Facebook. And if you haven't, follow us on YouTube. There's going to be all sorts of reaction from our team, which is covering the press conferences and talking to the players right now. 30-9, Cyclones win it. We'll be back on Sunday night here on the Cyclone Fanatic Podcast Network.